Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Jungle Boy. It is finally time for a video I promised a long time ago. I actually wrote this script ages ago, and now the moment has come. Today, we are comparing Shere Khan in different adaptations of the Jungle Book. The versions we will be looking at are Disney's Shere Khan, the Soviet Shere Khan, and the Nippon animation Shere Khan. Most of the other versions are either derivative or clearly influenced by one of these three, so these are the most interesting ones to compare. We'll judge them in 5 categories: design, motivation, intelligence, the pain they caused the heroes, and the way they were defeated. So let's begin. Category 1: Design and Animation. All 3 versions, just like in the original story, are Bengal tigers. Disney's Shere Khan is portrayed in a more classic, old-school Disney style. He's elegant, refined, and carries himself like an aristocrat. There's a certain calm, gentleman-like menace in the way he moves and behaves. The Soviet version feels more realistic. His movements are smoother, more fluid, and more animal-like. He's closer to how a real big cat would look and move, which gives him a very different kind of presence. In the Nippon animation version, his fur is yellow-toned, his sideburns are much more pronounced, and overall he has stronger individual features. His facial expressions and body language match his much crueler personality. And after he loses an eye, that injury makes his appearance even more intimidating. So who gets the point here? As I already said back in my anime versus Soviet comparison, these versions are so different stylistically because of their cultures and animation traditions that it is very hard to judge them directly. Comparing classic Disney, Soviet animation, and 1980s anime is not exactly fair. So this time, I think it's a draw. 1 point goes to each version. And yes, did you notice? On this channel, almost every comparison starts with a tie. Category 2: Motivation. This category is much more clear-cut. No matter how cool a villain looks, motivation matters. Without it, you just end up with a character who's basically evil for the sake of being evil. In Disney's version, Shere Khan's motivation is, in a way, closer to that of an anti-hero than a pure villain. His logic is simple. Adult humans are a threat to the jungle, so he believes he has to get rid of the man-cub before he grows up and brings destruction to everyone around him. And this exact idea is something Disney would return to again in its later adaptations, especially in 1994 and 2016. In the Soviet version, Shere Khan's motivation is much simpler. It is basically the same kind of dynamic as Tom trying to catch Jerry, or the wolf chasing the hare in Nu Pogodi. Mowgli is simply prey, and no matter what happens, he always slips away from him in the end. The anime version, however, combines both motivations, and does it much better. The hatred toward humans is not just Shere Khan's personal issue here. It is presented as something much bigger, almost universal among the animals, and the entire story often revolves around the conflict between humans and nature. We repeatedly see flashbacks of animals who suffered because of people, including Kichi, Sanda, and even Bagheera. In a sense, Baloo also suffered because of humans, since his mother was killed by the red dogs after being caught in a trap. But on top of that larger theme, Shere Khan also has a personal motive: revenge. At first, he wants revenge because Mowgli's father severely injured his paw, which in this version is the reason for his limp. And later, that hatred only grows stronger after he loses his eye. So for me, the point here clearly goes to the anime. Anime gets the point. Category 3: Intelligence. This category also has a pretty clear winner. Disney's Shere Khan is in many ways a very typical Disney villain. He falls into the classic cliché of talking to his victim instead of finishing the job, which of course gives the hero just enough time to be saved at the last possible moment. And in the sequel, things get even worse. There, he mostly just runs after Mowgli and Shanti through the Lost City and ends up falling into a trap in a very foolish way.
In the Soviet version, Shere Khan is shown more as a manipulator. Unlike in the book, he does not manage to turn the whole wolf pack against Akela in order to overthrow him, but he does influence some members of the pack and pushes them to argue that Mowgli should be handed over to him. Other than that, though, he does not show much intelligence. In the first episode, when Mowgli's fate is being decided, his strategy is basically just to stand there and loudly demand what he wants, and in the end, he simply fights Mowgli head-on. The anime version is very different. This Shere Khan has connections. He receives information, uses it well, and constantly thinks about how to turn every situation to his advantage. While the previous Shere Khans are either feared in a very simple way or treated almost like one-note predators repeating, "He's my prey, give him back," this version actually carries real authority and respect. He presents himself as someone who should not be underestimated. He is also rational. If the situation is clearly not in his favor or if his life is at serious risk, he knows when to retreat instead of mindlessly charging forward. And as a manipulator, he is easily the strongest of the three. He psychologically breaks Mowgli by leading him to the Lost City after Mowgli falls into despair because of bullying and rejection for being human. He manipulates starving wolves during the drought. He also forms alliances with other villains when it benefits him, promising mutual advantage. So once again, the point goes to the anime. Anime gets the point.
Now we move on to a very sensitive category: how much the villain actually hurt the heroes and affected the story as a whole. Disney's Shere Khan does not have much to show here. In the first movie, he only really appears near the end. Baloo's death turns out to be fake, and aside from that, Shere Khan does almost nothing across the two films. The 2016 movie handles this aspect better, but that version is not part of today's comparison. Still, to be fair, it is because of Shere Khan that Mowgli is forced to leave the jungle in the first place, something he clearly does not want at all. The Soviet version is not much more impressive in this category either. Yes, Mowgli is separated from his parents because of Shere Khan, but that is more indirect harm than anything else. In the Wolf Council scene, Bagheera ultimately saves Mowgli's life by buying it. Shere Khan's attempt to set Akela up fails, and in the later episodes his role is fairly limited. But the Japanese version handles this far better than the other two. Here, they truly succeed in creating a villain that the audience hates just as much as the characters do. The pain caused by this Shere Khan is simply on a completely different level. At Shere Khan's paws, Mowgli loses his adoptive father, Alexander, and that tragedy deeply affects everyone: Mowgli, the whole wolf pack, and especially Alexander's own family and descendants. And then there is the Lost City storyline. Even if not everything there is directly Shere Khan's doing, it is still because of him that Mowgli ends up there in the first place. There, Mowgli has his first real contact with other humans, and it is a terrible experience. He nearly dies, witnesses human cruelty with his own eyes, and when the bullying begins, he starts to believe that he really is a monster. On top of that, Shere Khan repeatedly attacks Mowgli's family and friends, putting many lives at risk. And the moment when Shere Khan gravely wounds the man who saved Mowgli's life, the man who became his first example of a good human being, that becomes the turning point leading directly into the final brutal battle. That is also the moment when Shere Khan loses his eye, making the conflict even more personal. So once again, the point goes to the anime.
Category 5, Defeat. Strangely enough, even the way Shere Khan is defeated can be compared. And I say defeated, not killed, because in many versions he actually survives. With Disney, that is exactly the case. In the first film, Mowgli uses fire. He grabs a burning branch, ties it to Shere Khan's tail, and the tiger runs away in panic. In the second film, The Search for Mowgli, Shere Khan chases the heroes through the Lost City, falls into a pit surrounded by lava, and then gets crushed under a statue. It sounds dramatic, but it still feels like things just sort of happened on their own, without much real effort from Mowgli himself. The Soviet Shere Khan, on the other hand, gets a much more epic final battle. The fight begins after he breaks the water truce. The wolves discover his lair. Mowgli rides a buffalo and drives the herd into a narrow gorge, trapping the tiger. In the original book, Shere Khan is trampled to death, but here he manages to leap upward and escape the herd. Mowgli jumps after him, loses his dagger, and the fight turns into hand-to-hand combat, where he tears the tiger's jaws apart with his bare hands. Yes, it is exaggerated, but it is spectacular, and within the logic of a fairy tale, it works perfectly. But the anime goes even further. Here, the final battle is built on several powerful layers of motivation. First, Mowgli swears that he will kill the tiger and bring his skin back to the village after his conflict with the hunter Buldeo. Second, his deepest personal motive is the memory of Alexander, his adoptive father, whom Shere Khan killed. And what makes this scene especially strong is that the battle is not just a one-on-one duel. It becomes an act of shared revenge. Sura and Akru fight alongside Mowgli, openly calling themselves Alexander's sons, making it clear that this is a matter of family honor. The battle itself is carefully built up in advance. Mowgli learns how to make fire. He learns to use a knife. He spends time herding buffaloes. And Shere Khan himself eats wild boars the day before the fight, which leaves him full and slower than usual. Then, during the battle itself, Tabaki and his mate are killed under the buffalo's horns. Shere Khan is wounded by torches, knives, teeth, and claws. By the final moments, he is so exhausted that you almost begin to feel sorry for him. But then Mowgli leaps down from above and drives the knife straight into his heart. So in this category, the points go to both the Soviet version and the anime. Both get 2 points. Disney gets none. Final score. To avoid making this a complete one-sided blowout, I redistributed the points a little. Design, 1 point each. Motivation, Disney 0, USSR 1, Anime 2. Intelligence, Disney 0, USSR 1, Anime 2. Pain caused to the heroes, only anime gets the point. Defeat, USSR 2, Anime 2, Disney 0. And then there are the bonus points. +2 to the Soviet version for the excellent voice acting. +2 to the anime for Shere Khan's musical theme. +1 to Disney for the original voice performance. So the final result is Disney 2 points, USSR 5 points, anime 11 points. And that means, for me, the clear winner is the Nippon anime version of Shere Khan. Bonus section, my personal ranking. And finally, I want to briefly talk about the other versions too, despite what I said at the beginning of the video. If you look at the comments under my previous video, some people ask me to make a personal top of all Shere Khan adaptations. And honestly, that ranking looks very different from the conclusions I gave in this comparison, so this part is going to be very subjective. Here's the ranking I posted there. The Jungle Book 1989, The Jungle Book 2016, Mowgli 2018, Soviet Mowgli, The Jungle Book 1967, The Jungle Book 2010, The Jungle Book 1994, Chuck Jones, Jetlag, Golden Films, and the 1942 version, The Jungle Book, Search for the Lost Treasure. Again, this list is highly subjective, but let me quickly explain it. The 2016 version is in second place, even though in the main part of this video, I treated it as roughly equal to the 1967 Disney version. The reason is that in this version, Shere Khan's motivation is backed up by more personal resentment. Unlike the original Disney version, this Shere Khan has a much more direct impact on the plot. He openly threatens Mowgli and everyone who stands in his way. He kills Akela, he terrorizes the wolves, and visually, I just really like this design. He is terrifying in the best possible way. That blind eye, the burns, the scars, he looks genuinely intimidating. In third place is the 2018 version. Yes, his motivation is basically the same as in the Soviet or book version, and yes, the CGI is debatable. But even so, this Shere Khan is probably the most frightening one in terms of both appearance and behavior. He feels like a true psychopath. As for first, fourth, and fifth place, those versions were already discussed in the main part of the video. The ones below that are mostly ranked based on how much Shere Khan actually appears in those adaptations. In the 2010 series, he is present in almost every episode, so he has some impact, but at the same time, by the next episode, it often feels like everything resets. In the 1994 film, he exists mostly as a background threat, and that is about it. Eighth place goes to the adaptations that more or less just copy the story from Mowgli's brothers to Tiger Tiger without adding much of their own. And ninth place goes to the film where Shere Khan appears only at the very end for a couple of minutes. So yes, this ranking is very personal, and it is not exactly the same thing as judging which version is objectively better written.